we're going to talk about identity across borders. In this class, it came out of a couple things. I've been watching not the Olympics because I don't have a television, but I have been watching some of the discussion of the athletes who seem to be kind of randomly switching sides, at some level, and which has kind of always happened to some degree, but it seems like it's happening more. And it led me to think a little bit about boundaries and borders and identity. And so I'm calling it identity across borders because it's like, who do we really identify with and how and why? What does it mean? So first off, why don't you introduce yourselves, and then I'm going to talk for 5 minutes, and then I'll bring you into the conversation. So we'll start with Isha.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, my name's Isha, and I guess what year I am and what all that nonsense.
Yeah, like what's something about yourself that we need to know?
My name's Isha. I'm a second year studying IST, and I'm from the U.S. I was born in the U.S., but I'm Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Hi everyone, my name is Ina. I'm a senior majoring supply chain. I was born in China and I came to the US when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm. So you did your high school years here in the US?
Yes.
Whereabouts?
Sorry?
Where?
Oh, in suburb Boston.
Yeah?
Massachusetts.
Cool. All right. Do you say Boston?
Yeah.
Boston? All right. So, I feel like this first conversation is just like a thinking conversation, right? So I'm going to say a couple things. You'll have to turn around at some point and look at the slide, including this first one. When we think about borders, when we think about the globe, this is what we see, right? This is what we're used to seeing. It's a political map, and by a political map, meaning that it's the nation states are bounded by geographic borders that we see, and we're always identifying them and so on, right? And which is how we get into these conversations about immigration or whatever it is, identity with nations as opposed to identity with people, which is really interesting because if you go to the next slide, for most of human history, these were the boundaries, right? There were very few really distinct borders between nations. In fact, there were no nation states. I mean, they're just peoples and tribes, right? So, Europe, the long history of Europe is a history of tribes and sort of jostling for space and power and so on and so forth. And the history of sort of all countries in the world are the history of tribes. We don't often use tribe as a word. We don't use it to describe Europeans, but, for most of European history, these are just tribes. And they identify in different ways, right? They identify according to a language because, as people move to separate areas of the world, you don't have you're going to speak the language of the people who are right around you. And you're going to develop your own dialect or your own language. And it's going to be the people with whom you are spending your life. And people aren't traveling around. You can't go very far. So you can imagine that, right? Can we all get that? So, that's why you can have, one valley, they speak not only beyond a dialect, they develop their own language compared to the people who live in the next valley over and not very far away. And that's how we can have, just so many different peoples and so many different customs and mores and ways of seeing the world and language. And so what happens is people throughout the vast majority of human history, we identify in a really complex array of ways. And so here, we think about it, if you go back a slide, we just think about the identity as with, like a nation. And then within a nation, we have different groups and, tribes in a way. We could call it tribes, teams, whatever you want to say. But then people will say, well, why can't you identify, or, but we should all identify, so let's say in the United States, right? We have hundreds of languages that are spoken in the United States. And, so white people, for example, probably the greatest amount of conflict in the United States is between white people, the white tribes, the white ethnic groups, the white, however you want to say it, who were here battling each other. And so, the Italians and the Irish and the this and the that. And so, probably, I was thinking about this the other day. I heard someone say, like, what is one thing that, like, white people can be proud of, right? We talk about, like, white pride, right? I mean, if we say, like, black pride or Chicano pride or native pride or something, like, then we kind of know where it goes. But if you say white pride, it generally, we associate that with, like, a racist kind of ideology or something. But one thing that white people can be proud of is the fact that they've really been able to largely move away from the ethnocentrism and the hate and the violence and the negativity that was associated with the different white groups or white tribes here in the United States, right? So, I mean, that's a complex thing, but nonetheless, I just feel obliged to say it. Okay, so go to the next slide. By the way, if I could just point something out, if I could just can I point something out? So, like, immigration is a big issue in the United States, right? Like immigration, especially coming up from Mexico, and people have these different ideas about how we should think about the U.S. and who belongs here and who doesn't belong here. And I just want to point out that, here's the border between the U.S. and Mexico. So this was all one landmass. And, like, the indigenous peoples on this side of the border here in northern Mexico share the exact same DNA with the indigenous peoples on this side of the border, who are identified as North Americans as opposed to Mexican Americans, okay? They share the exact same DNA. The border just was imposed upon them by somebody else and divided them. But I also want to say one other thing. For those of you who believe in God, whatever she is to you, this is what God sees, this right here. Go back one slide. God doesn't see this. God doesn't give a damn about the United States. God loves the United States. God doesn't love the United States. There's nothing special. God doesn't love your country or another country. I mean, this is just ethnocentric bullshit that people hang on to. Go ahead. This is what God sees. It's all the same. God didn't divide the world up. Human beings divided the world up on the basis of their greed and so on. So when you think like, oh, we got to put a border here. Hey, look at that. You got to put a border here, and, it's only for real Americans or whatever the case is. Do you think what's God say about that? You know what I mean? God didn't put the border there. I'm just pointing that out. I'm just trying to be I'm just poking, dude. You know what I mean? Bro, like that, you feel it? I'm just like poking. Because poking is the way we think. So you can think any way you want about God, but God doesn't see that border from God's vantage point, which I think is a really interesting thing. But nonetheless, go to the next slide. So then we even talked something, I just was thinking, hey, Nigeria, right? I was listening to or watching a program about Nigeria, and I was thinking, there's like over 500 languages in Nigeria. So we think about Nigeria as this nation, which, by the way, even the name Nigeria came from Europeans. And, all of this sort of carving up of Africa came from Europeans. I mean, it was imposed on the outside. And so 500 different languages in this geographic area. Nigeria is a very new nation, right? So this geographic area, 500 languages, and 371, actually it's 525 is the current number, but 371 what would be ethnic groups or tribes. And man, so when you say, like, if I'm talking to a Nigerian and I'm saying, like, well, so how do you identify? Well, you identify as Nigerian, but for me, my next statement always is, well, what's your ethnicity or what's your tribe? and people still use tribes. Like it's not just it's not like a negative term that we, like here we've turned it into something negative, but it's not negative. It just is. So then that's the next statement, because you want to know, like, what's your identity? How do you identify? And this sort of thing, right? So this is all part of identity. This is what's just so awesome. And we can have multiple cross-cutting identities at the same time. And so I find this sort of thing to be just really fascinating, okay? So what led me into this conversation today is watching the Olympics and kind of watching these athletes who are kind of seem like just randomly picking their tribes or randomly picking their nations. A lot of people kind of moving back and forth. And so like, wow, this is it's a new thing. I mean, it has always happened at some level, but it's happening now more and more than ever, because, we live in this global world and people can just jet around the world any way they want, and it's really easy to do. And I was thinking, like, this guy, go to the next slide. This dude, I forget what his name is, Jeremy something. But he's from Michigan, and he's the goalie for the Chinese hockey team, right? And so, like, have you seen this guy? Have you heard of him?
Actually, not very.
Yeah?
Not very
You probably don't follow hockey. Well, you were in Boston. You should follow hockey. The Bruins,
Oh, I heard about that.
You heard about the
Yeah.
Bruins?
But I don't really follow too much on sports.
You don't follow sports?
Yeah.
Ah, good for you. Yeah, sports can be a waste of time. But it's something to just preoccupy ourselves with so we don't have to think about the fact that we're going to die. So, but this guy is from the U.S. He's from Michigan, right? And he just made some agreement. So the idea is you can have two passports at the same time with some countries, right? That you can do that. And, it really is a matter of, you have to work it out. Depends on the country, right? Does China do that? Do you have any idea? Does China?
No.
With any
It's not allowed to have two citizenships at the same
with
time.
anywhere, any country?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So like this guy came along. So usually you would, if you're going to play for China, you got to declare citizenship, your allegiance to the Chinese people in the government, right?
Yeah.
So do you think he did that?
I think he did.
Yeah, he didn't
Yeah.
actually.
He did?
No.
Wow.
And this is, yeah. So one of his conditions on being goalie for the Chinese was saying, like, I'm not giving up my U.S. citizenship, right? So I don't know if he speaks Mandarin. Does anyone know? Does he speak Mandarin? He probably speaks, I think he's been in China, but like, no, he didn't. So somehow the Chinese government made some agreement with him because they needed a goalie. You know what I mean? Like, dudes. Hang on, I want you to see my face. Wow. The corruption is just beyond what even my mind can imagine. Okay. Hang on. All right, there we go. So, no, so he did not give up his U.S. So everybody makes deals. These are backroom deals, Okay, so go to the next slide. All right, so these three people here, do you tell us about, it's the first woman,
Yeah.
Aileen, no, it's
I'm not sure how to pronounce her
Yeah.
English name, but
I didn't put her Chinese. The Chinese say it differently, or they write it differently, right?
right. In Chinese name, her name is Gu Ailing, and so basically like flipping the first name and last name. And the second girl, she's Zhu Yi.
Speak right into the mic.
Okay. Yeah, she's Chinese ice skating. Is that how you call it? Like ice skater?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Nathan, he identifies as American
Mm-hmm.
ice skater.
So so it's Ailing, right?
Mhm.
Ailing. So she is American, right? And she is now she's competing for China.
Right.
She's a snowboarder, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And she speaks Mandarin
Yep.
with a
Both
Beijing
Mandarin.
accent.
Yeah, her Mandarin's pretty good.
It's really good. You've heard her speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she spent summers there.
Oh yeah. Her mom is Chinese.
Uh-huh. But she's dodging the question. So she grew up in the U.S. She trained in the U.S. She, by all intents and purposes, is an American, right? She's rooted here, right?
That's hard to say.
Well, she went back every summer, it sounds
Oh,
like,
okay,
right?
okay.
But she's an American. Like, she trains here, she learns snowboard here, like the whole
Mhm.
9 yards, right? As an American, by how we think about it as an American. But, you know, we can be many things. Like, you know, you've spent 8 years in the United States. So it's like, that's almost half your life, right? So anyway, she decides, hey, I'm going to compete for China. But you know, have you listened to any interviews with her? They ask her if she's,
Yeah, I listened to one of her interviews.
yeah,
It
with,
was, she was speaking up for herself in terms of how both sides were kind of accusing her for like both sides were saying that she was like betraying, like there were like hate speech on both sides, but I don't know. I feel like she is very aware of what she's doing,
mhm.
and the thing that she said also makes sense to me.
What did she say?
Like she's just like enjoying her best life, making the decision that she thinks is the best for her,
Uh-huh.
and doesn't matter what other people say. She's like, yeah, it seems like she doesn't care too much
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm. In China, the
Mhm.
people in China have really embraced her.
Yes.
Why
that's
do you think they've really embraced her?
I think because she looks American, and she identified herself as, or like she plays for China, and she won like gold medal,
Uh-huh.
and it's something.
And she
Yeah.
speaks fluently.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they ask her whether she changed her citizenship, and she dodges the question, right? Like, she hasn't said yes or no.
Really, I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you really see somebody like the last guy, who clearly has come out and said, no, I told the Chinese I would compete for them, but I'm not changing my citizenship. Well, I'm sure that's true with her, right? Because they would just come out. So it's just this game that's played. So this is it Yizhu, right? Yizhu?
Yeah, 注意.
Jui?
Yeah.
Jui. That's what you say, Jui.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I did that pretty well, actually. That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So what's her story?
I think she grew up in China. She was competing for China. I'm not sure if that part is very accurate. Like as far as I know, she was competing for China, but like she failed. Like during
No, she grew up here
Oh, she
in the
grew up
U.S.
here.
Yeah, and she
Okay.
moved there because her father took a job there.
Oh, okay.
And do you know?
And I think as far as I know, she failed
Yeah.
during one of the competition, and then people on the internet were just kind of criticizing her for like not winning the game. I
The
guess.
Chinese internet?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were brutal with her.
Uh-huh.
Dude, what's up with the Chinese? Can you like tell us what's up with Chinese, man? There's like, they were brutal with her.
So I feel like it's the internet. Like
Yeah.
a big part of it is like the media is playing a big role in
Uh-huh.
in this whole thing, and like people, they get information through those social medias, and like they take sides very easily
Mhm.
without like trying to know the real stories
Mhm.
behind it.
Yeah, because we don't do that in the United States.
I feel like everywhere in the world on the internet.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. I'm just kidding. My God, I've been the victim of that many times. Okay, so she, but here's the thing with her that's really interesting. She doesn't speak Mandarin very well, whereas Zhu Eiling, is it Zhu Eiling?
谷爱凌.
Gu Eiling. She speaks fluently. The Jui, how do I do? Jui?
Yeah, 注意.
Jui.
Yeah.
She doesn't speak Mandarin very well at all. And so like she's not perceived to be Chinese enough. So even though she gave up her US citizenship, moved to China, took citizenship in China, right? and now competes for the Chinese people and the Chinese government. She doesn't speak very well, and so she's not been embraced at all, which is really, for me, it says something about the ability to, and I'm gonna come to you in a second here, right? The ability to become, like, to embrace a particular identity, you have to really show that you hold that identity, that you have that identity. But if you can't speak the language really well, then it doesn't appear as though you do. So people have one of the reasons people are criticizing her is because they think that she should speak better. If you want to be Chinese, you have to speak.
Maybe, but I feel like the main reason is like both of them, they are competing for China, but like one won and the other didn't win.
Yeah.
And like it's very easy for people to like judge the one who didn't win.
Yeah, the one who
Yeah.
didn't win. Yeah. And the other guy, Nathan,
Uh-huh.
do you know his story?
He competed for American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, he's all red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great skiing.
And are they like, are people in China embracing him, or are they?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I didn't like on the media. I didn't see too much about him.
Yeah. No, they're
Yeah.
not really. So one of the things that he did, first off, one of the things that he did is someone also put a tweet out, one of his teammates about a year ago, on the Uyghurs. How do you say that? The Uyghurs, the Muslim group?
Weiwar.
Uyghur? So in English, people say Uyghurs, but in Mandarin, you say Uyghur.
I think I hope I'm saying the right thing.
Yeah.
It's like ethnicity.
Yeah, the ethnicity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Weiwar.
Uyghur.
Mhm.
Okay, so someone put a tweet out, and he liked the tweet, and then that's like, okay, man, that's a problem. But he's competing for the U.S., so like they've rejected him, but the Americans seem to embrace him, right?
Mhm.
So, Isha, so tell us about yourself. A question. So you're like a perfect person just to bounce this off of, right? So you're born in the U.S. Your parents are Gujarati,
Yes.
and you understand Gujarati?
Yes.
Do you say that they're
Gujarati.
Gujarati?
Gujarati, yes.
Gujarati. How do I do? Gujarati.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you identify as Indian, like American Indian, Indian American, or Gujarati American?
I guess most of the time I would just generalize it to Indian, but usually when you're talking to other people who are Indian, it
Mhm.
gets down to the question like, okay, but what kind of Indian are you? And that's when I'd say I'm Gujarati.
Mm-hmm. So it goes like, if I say like, hey, there's a good Indian restaurant downtown, right? For anybody else who doesn't know anything about India, like, or, for you would just feel, oh yeah, it's Indian food, right? But India's a massive country.
Right.
And so you would want to know, okay, what kind of food,
Yeah.
what kind of restaurant, right? Like, what questions would you be thinking?
Like-
No, go ahead. Do you have anything to add to that, I guess?
Like if someone invited me to an Indian restaurant,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
follow-up
yeah.
would be like, okay, is it Punjabi food? Is it like street food? Like what's...
Mm-hmm. It's from north, is it from south,
Yeah.
is it, yeah. And I think this is one of those identity questions, right? That people, we sort of lose our, even here in the United States, right? If I go anywhere in the U.S., and people, you don't really think about this until you have the experience, but if I go anywhere outside the U.S. and someone says, hey, there's this really great American restaurant, and my first thought is like, well, hang on a second, man. What do you mean American restaurant? There's like so many different Americas and so many different kinds of food, right? And the same thing is true in your case. The same is true also for you, right? So my question for you is, are you an athlete at all?
No.
Okay, but imagine you were, right? What would it take for you to compete on behalf of India? I'm imagining, you know what I mean? Like, what would it take for you to just be like, hey, even though I grew up here, I could just, like, what would it take?
I was actually thinking about that when you guys were talking. I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. And my initial thought is if I was an athlete to that caliber, it would take roughly the same amount for me to play for India as it would, I guess, play for Germany or Japan or anything. You know, I guess I want to say that there are exceptions for certain countries, but I feel like that's unfair.
Mm-hmm. You mean, so you as this American U.S. citizen of Indian or Gujarati ancestry, right?
Yes.
You're no more aligned. You would no more be aligned to India than you would some other random country.
I guess in my head, I'm not assigning that much power to the country that you play for in the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Maybe just personally, maybe that's my own personal sense of nationalism or patriotism. I know I'm a U.S. citizen, and I know by culture and ethnic background I'm Indian, so I align with both. But you know, if I'm that high up in, like, as an athlete, I wouldn't mind playing for Germany. I think it is a fair point, though, like the dual citizenship. I wouldn't give up my citizenship.
Yeah, you wouldn't think about that.
I wouldn't.
But you understand Gujarati, right? Like,
I understand about 90% of it. There are some like little gaps, but I do understand the overwhelming majority.
So you might be more like Jew, and she might speak better than it appears, but she's been there quite a number of years, right? But she doesn't speak Mandarin at all, very much in public, right? So she's not confident in her Mandarin. So you might be more like her, right? You'd be in India, you'd be speaking broken
Right.
Gujarati or something. Yeah. So what do you think? So can we go back to this? Like, can you just briefly? You kind of said it, but what do you think about just randomly switching sides? Like the last guy, the hockey player. What do you think about that?
So you said switching sides.
Yeah, just
And
like
that's-
whatever, just picking out whatever.
But that's to
country.
insinuate that there are sides.
Okay, all right. So picking a country, just randomly picking a country. What do you think about that?
I don't personally see an issue with it.
What do you see?
I think it's fair. At the end of the day, it's the Olympics, right? It's kind of at its very core an event to bring all the countries together in a way, although it's done the opposite, and it's kind of, you know, it is a competition, but I don't think it matters whether you're a U.S. citizen and you play for Germany or you're a German citizen and you play for Japan. That's your prerogative.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to that, right? We stand behind flags, but like flags are all, if you go to the first, I mean, I'm just throwing something out here, right? If you go to the first slide that I showed, or the slide, remember the image from that God sees, how she sees it? Doesn't like, well, whatever, who cares, right? It doesn't really matter. Yina, what do you think about that?
So I feel like it's their personal choice. Like, I mean, it's like kind of the influence they got, like growing up, and then they decided like if there's a side, let's say, like which one they prefer. And then once they became better, it became like a competition between like two countries or three, multiple countries. Like they tend to like have less control.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So there's a way in which it's like just in certain ways, elite people just deciding what they feel like doing, which is kind of the way the world is. So if you go, I want to just show you something. If you go to the next slide. So I was thinking about this with regard to multinational corporations, of which so there are probably a lot of you saying, I'm sure many of you are saying like, wait, what do you mean? It's the Olympics. Like you compete for a country, you have a flag. It's like you shouldn't be allowed to just go where you want to go, right? You got to be like really part of the country. Like, it's not fair. This isn't what the world is. That's not what the Olympics is. The Olympics is about something else, right? It's about this competition between countries and nation states, and even though they're changing and so on and so forth, that's what it is. So I was thinking, But this is the world that we're in, and you two, in a way, represent this, right? You, who spent, the past 8 years here in the United States studying, and you who are American by your citizenship, but you have this deep connection with India via your parents and language and different things, right? And I was thinking, well, most of you all, or many of you, I don't know, maybe a third, will work for multinational corporations that also have no allegiance to any nation. People just go wherever they want to go. And countries go wherever they want to go, or companies, I mean. And they just decide, like, however they want to be. And they move their headquarters here, they move their headquarters there, or they move their manufacturing plant down to Mexico or to Vietnam or wherever it is. They send the jobs out of Scranton, PA, and they end up, somewhere in South America, and it just doesn't matter to them. They have no allegiance. Apple does not have any allegiance to the United States. The headquarters of Apple or Microsoft or whatever it is, Amazon, it might be in the U.S. for now, but there's zero allegiance to the United States. Many of you will be working for corporations that will go wherever they need to go to make the greatest amount of profit and get the best deals for their shareholders, and it doesn't matter. And I was thinking about just offshore tax havens and thinking that, just the U.S. Fortune 500 companies, there's, $2.6 trillion sitting in offshore tax havens. That's money that should be in the United States. And it's not in the U.S. And it's not in the U.S. because, just like these athletes, these corporations just decide, you know what? We're going to take all this profit, all this money, and we're just going to move it over here because it's good for us. And so screw the U.S. and screw the Americans and screw the taxpayers and screw whatever. Just like the athletes can just decide, hey, you know what? I'm just going to decide, and the Chinese government can decide, hey, we're just going to let her compete for us, because she's good and she wants to, and we're going to cut a deal on the side. She doesn't have to give up, or the hockey player, we need a goalie. He doesn't have to give up his citizenship. He'll just play with us. Just like the Swiss will say, hey, just send your $200 billion over to us and we'll hide it away in one of our bank accounts. So this is what's going on at multiple levels. And, the world loses $500 to $600 billion a year in lost tax revenue because companies just randomly decide to just move wherever they want to go. So, why isn't it? So you're saying, the two of you just said, why not do that? Why can't athletes do that? Yeah, why can't they? If these folks can do it, then everybody else can do it. You know what I mean? So when you look at it in terms of this, do you have any final thoughts as we move? Do you have any final thoughts about that? You probably haven't thought about that, right? I shouldn't say that. I don't know. Have you ever thought about that? Do you have any thoughts? When I put it in that perspective, what comes to mind for you?
I still feel like it's a little different. I get the parallel. I understand the parallel of it, but it still feels different than assigning, I guess, nationality to it. And there's a sense of patriotism that comes with, I'm a U.S. citizen and I play for the U.S. versus I play for China, or when you're talking about trillions of dollars of,
But listen,
offshore.
but if it was in your economic interest to play for China, or in your case, India, let's say, right? Because your parents are Indian, and you can have dual citizenship with India and the U.S., right? You don't think so?
I don't know how that works. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I think you can in India. Does anyone know? Can you? You can, right? Yeah, you can. So you could do that. So you could go, start working on your snowboarding skills really hard. And maybe, because India doesn't send any snowboarders to the Olympics. Dude, 4 years from now, you could kill it. You could crush it, man. You won't win a medal, but whatever. At least you'll play in the Olympics, right? Like the Jamaican bobsled team. So, you might just decide, hey, I just feel like I'm going to do that. And just like I might be a corporation that decides, you know what, I'm just going to send all these jobs and this manufacturing plant over to India because I can. It's good for me, so I will do that. So, I don't know. It seems like if it's fair for one, it's fair for the other. But I hear what you're saying. There's a patriotism. You think, yeah, but wait a minute. Don't you care about... I thought you cared about people. It's nah, we care about profits, right? Do you have any final thoughts?
Kind of similar to what she was saying.
Uh-huh.
Like I feel like globalization itself, it's like this kind of things are gonna happen like more often
For
in
sure.
the future, and it's like so like people in general need to be like more open-minded and like inclusive about like other people and like just respect other people's decisions. But at the same time, I also very understand like the patriotism.
Yeah, patriotism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
patriotism with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, no, I get that too. I
Yeah.
get it, but it's also just a random creation that people have. You know what I mean? It's like whatever. But you don't get that until you are more global in your orientation. The more you travel, the more you see, especially the wealthy classes, the more people are citizens of any country. You know what I mean? You're just like all over. Like, so for me, because I've traveled to so many places and I've lived so much time abroad, I can see so easily. I can just be I could just land us anywhere. It'd be fine. You know what I mean? Like I have a place in Colombia. I could be a Colombian, get a Colombian visa, be in Colombia. It doesn't really matter. It would be irrelevant. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice job. Hey. Yeah, thank you, both of you. Hey, it's a really, these are like, this is one of those, hey, so, ready? Mira, do you have the other? Yeah. This is one of those conversations that is, for me, there's no right or wrong, right? Like what I'm doing in this sense is, hey, you can go to the next slide. What I'm doing in a conversation like that is trying to zoom out and then see some things from other perspectives, right? It seems so wrong, for example, that some random athlete, like the hockey guy, right? Like the Chinese could just randomly say, hey, we need a goalie. And so like they just go poach some goalie from outside of Detroit, Michigan. Like, what the hell is that? That just feels so wrong. And yet, like, why is it wrong? Like, what's the problem? Because people at other levels do that with money, and then people defend it. It's like, well, that's okay. That's business. That's capitalism. That's how capitalism works. I'm like, well, fuck, then that's how playing hockey works. Just go get the goalie that you want to get. I mean, if it's true here, it's true there. I mean, I don't know. It's just plain. My job is just to push and think about some things, right? Okay, so, introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Olia. I'm a senior studying public relations. I'm from Long Island.
From Long Island.
I'm Haley. I'm a senior studying actuarial science, and I'm from outside of Philly.
Wait, actuarial science, that's like insurance, like it's the numbers thing, right? You want to guess like whether I should get insurance, like how long I'm going to live kind of stuff?
Yeah, we figure out when like people are gonna die and stuff.
Yeah, which doesn't matter when you're your age, but when you get to my age, those numbers, you start thinking about that. You know what I mean? Like, oh shit, I know. God. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, I'm Red. I'm from State College, and I'm studying telecom.
Okay. And we are going to, I want to have a conversation about, because this is, again, like identity across borders. And just see how, so we're going to talk about transnational adoption. So so just quickly, just say something about, so all three of you have been adopted, and just, where you're from, where you, et cetera. Like, give us like a quick.
So I was adopted from Russia, Naryan-Mar. It's like North Russia.
Like really North Russia.
Yeah, like by Siberia. I got adopted when I was 4.5.
Hey, can you just do, can you zoom in on Olia? Just pull your mask down a second, right? Can you zoom in, like, see, like, you see, like, her, when you go really far north in Russia, Russia's a European country, but like, look at her eyes. Wait, hang on. Can you pull it up so we can see. See her eyes, and you can see like the slight epicanthic fold here, right, of the Asian eye, because this is part of, that part of northern Russia too. So how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
4.5.
And your parents are, your adoptive parents?
I think they're Irish.
Yeah.
Or American.
Yeah, okay, you could be Irish, it's all good. Yep.
I was adopted from China when I was 10 months old. I'm from Guangzhou, but I don't know where that is.
You don't know where it is?
No. Do
Wait.
you?
Seriously, you've never looked on a map to see where it is?
I've never thought to do that.
Really?
No.
Okay. Oh, this is
Oops.
awesome. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, not at all. This is cool. Yeah, Mira.
I'm from Ethiopia. It's like southeastern of Africa, and I came here when I was 10 years old.
10 years old.
10, like 9, 10.
And where were you from in Ethiopia?
The capital.
From Addis?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Do you remember? You were 10, right?
Yeah, I remember a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the orphanage and like the people there.
Uh-huh. And do you remember? Yeah, so I've been into Addis a couple of times. Really fascinating. The food, do you miss okay, well, hang on, we're going to start with you. Do you miss the food?
Yes. Yeah, like we don't have any restaurants in State College, but like there's some in Philly, in Pittsburgh, in California, so yeah.
So your adoptive parents here, what's their background?
American.
Okay, and are they white, black?
Yes, they're white. White.
Are you the only child that's adopted?
No, like, okay, I have like a long story. So like I have 2 siblings. We were adopted in 2010, and I have another 3 siblings. They were adopted 2 years after us. So
Biological
altogether,
siblings.
no, like I have one of my sister. She lived with our family, and my brother, he's like my blood brother. And 3 years later, we adopted 3 kids from the same place in Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now altogether we have like 6 kids.
6 kids.
Yeah.
Wow, man. So you're, how much time, so here's a question I have. How much time in your life here in the United States do you talk about being, how do you identify? Let me ask you that.
Ethiopian. I just say I'm Ethiopian.
You say Ethiopian?
Yeah.
Ethiopian American, Ethiopian.
Just like Ethiopian.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But you have a U.S. passport.
Yeah.
Do you, but Ethiopia has, I think, a dual citizenship.
I don't think they have 2. You can only have 1.
You can only have 1. Okay, all right. So you immediately have, do you identify just Ethiopian, not Ethiopian American, Ethiopian?
Yeah, like when people ask me, I'm like, yeah, I'm from Ethiopia. I don't just say like I'm Ethiopian African or like Ethiopian American.
And what do your adoptive parents say? Hey, by the way, can I say something to the
Sure.
3 of you and to the class? I'm going to ask a lot of really sensitive questions that don't have an answer to them, and there's definitely no right or wrong, and there's no judgment involved. So like, Haley, when I said, well, you don't even know where it is on a map, that's neither good nor bad. That's just like, for me, as a sociologist, it's awesome that Haley has, how old are you?
21.
Dude, 21 years old. She's adopted from a place in China on the other side of the world and has never even looked on a map to see where that is. That is just as awesome to me and cool as it would be if she had a map of that city on your wall, right? It's the same thing. It just doesn't matter. So like when you said, I just want to be really clear, right? When you said, I'm sorry. Like, it's like, no, this is awesome, right? What my job is to pull out of you, what's it, okay, so I'm going to start with the general question. We're going to come back here. What's it like to be adopted transnationally?
It's kind of cool, but like, I guess it would be cooler if like my parents kept up with my culture and like with the language and everything about that.
Mm-hmm. So they don't. Have they ever talked about it, or have
Like, cause I came here and I had to learn English, cause I was like, so I'm like a grade behind. Like I technically should have graduated, So I had to stay back, learn English for a year. And they kind of just like were fast paced in me learning English and getting to school. So they never like kept up with my Russian. So like I lost that. And they don't like teach me any traditions or anything. So like that kind of sucks. So like identity kind of thing.
So Haley, that's not a problem, an issue for you, right? Or is it? Do you wish that it happened?
I don't really think about it too much because it happened when I was so young. So like, yeah, it doesn't really matter to me. But my parents also didn't really expose me to culture or anything.
So wait, Olia, how old were you when you came?
4.5.
4.5, right? So you were speaking Russian. Were you speaking a dialect? Because you're so far north, right?
Yeah.
You must have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for you, Haley, it's not you didn't really.
No, like I can't remember anything from
Yep.
when I was in China, so I don't think about it that much.
Did your parents ever ask you, like, hey, do you want to think about, like, hey, Penn State or it's wherever somebody offers Chinese Mandarin classes or something, would you be interested?
No, they never asked me. Like we didn't have it. Well, we had it in high school, but you had to do like 4 years of one language, and then you had to do that, and like, no one did that, so
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't really on the table.
So you never had any interest?
No.
Uh-huh. Did your parents ever ask, like, once to sit down and say, hey, do you ever think about where you came from? Why not? Like, what do you think is behind that?
I think just because like we grew up in a very like white neighborhood in
Yeah.
general, and
Yeah.
so they probably thought like I didn't think about it too much, which I didn't. Like they weren't wrong.
Yeah. No. I
Because it
think.
wasn't. Yeah, and like my whole family's white, so the whole like thing of like exploring other cultures, that just didn't exist for them.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Yeah, and we see that, right, with many people who adopt transnationally. The goal is, hey, we want to treat, like if you're like my daughter, right? It's like if the three of you are my children, right? I want to treat all three of you the exact same. I don't want to make anybody special. I don't want to, like have you talk about like China, because then it'd be like, oh my God, no, you're part of the family now. You're here, right? And that's a really awesome thing that people do. And, there are other consequences, right? In your household, because there are so many of you from Ethiopia, like you can't not talk about it, I would imagine. So go ahead. What?
Like I keep up with my culture because my mom speaks a little bit of Ethiopian, Amharic, and she also
Amharic is the most common language in
Yeah.
Ethiopia.
She also makes Ethiopian food for us sometimes, like when we were younger.
Did she make injera?
No, we get it from like DC.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
My sister makes it actually.
I tried making it once, by the way.
How did it go?
It was a fail, a massive fail.
It's really hard to make.
It's
It's
very
like a long
hard to make.
process.
Yeah, I gave up when I realized that most Ethiopians don't even try to make it. Yeah. Okay, so she learned to cook a little bit,
Yes.
learned some Amharic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She also have like some friends from like Penn State who are from Ethiopia, so like we kind of like talk with them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think that's all.
And what do you like think is, what's the coolest part about being, I don't know, about being adopted from another country?
You get like both worlds from like back there and here, and like I don't know. I feel like I'm more cultured that way.
Uh-huh.
Like I have like my life. I have families back there. I have 4 brothers, and I have a mother, and I also have family here.
Wait,
so
a birth mother?
Yeah.
So you're
Also-
still in contact with her?
Sometimes we like FaceTime,
Okay.
but like you can only get adopted if you are like not that old, like 13 and younger. You can get adopted.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can only get adopted if you have like one parent alive. Like
Uh-huh.
if both of your parents are alive, you can get adopted because it's like the law in Ethiopia. You can't get adopted.
Yeah,
If both are alive.
yeah. So, Olia, have you, how much do you think about, how often do you think about the fact that you're adopted?
I'd say a lot.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
Like, can you tell us more about that?
I guess it's just 'cause like 10 years is that's like a really old, not old, but like kind of like a traumatic age. So like, So like I guess like after 3 years old, like it can like has a way of like working with like your development issues. So it's like growing up, it's tough like forming an identity and like abandonment issues and like little stuff like that. Yeah, so I guess I think about it every day just because I like being Russian, but I'm constantly around like Americans all the time. My family's American, so like I like to remind myself like no, like I'm Russian, like I'm not like American.
Do you, so did you, so go back to your parents as an example, right? Your adoptive parent. I'm going to say your parents, right? So I'm just going to respond to as parents. It's, unless it's otherwise, I'll say birth parents, but you don't know your birth, neither of you know your birth parents at all, right? Do you have any idea?
I like my sister actually found me like 2 years ago, so like I have a picture in her and like I FaceTimed them once.
Oh, seriously? Well, how was that?
It was cool, yeah.
Yeah? How was her English?
Not good. It was like when we communicate, I just have to translate everything into Russian.
So she's your biological sister?
Yeah.
And she lives with your biological mom?
Yeah.
Well, so you met your mom.
I saw her.
You saw her, yeah? And what did your U.S. parents, your parents here, think about that? How was that for them?
My mom's really the one that's like involved in my adoption and like talking to me with it. So she was like really happy for me that I can like find that connection again and like that blood relative.
Uh-huh. So do you think, so for any of the three of you, Mira, you kind of said this already, but Haley, for the two of you, there's like, I have the idea that just being adopted from another country, like your how do you identify? That's my question.
I like on a questionnaire, like I'll say white, but if it says like ethnicity, I'm saying Russian.
You say Russian. So like that's very much a part of you.
Yeah.
But so Haley, how about you though?
On a questionnaire, I'll say Asian. Like,
You'll say Asia?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look, Haley, I'm going to ask you this question, right? When you look in a mirror, like what do you see? Who do you see?
it's very like, I mean, I'm aware I'm Asian. Like, I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah, it sounds like a trick question, but it's not like, so I spent a lot of time just listening or talking with or people who, have been adopted by people in other cultures, right? And it's like you see well, let me ask you that question. What do you see? Like, who do you see when you look in a mirror?
I see like a Russian girl.
You see a Russian girl? So you see an Asian, a Chinese?
Yeah, I see a Chinese person. Like, yeah.
Uh-huh. It's really, I have a lot of questions, but does anybody, can I open it up? Can I have I'll take, and the three of you can share a mic, yeah.
I have a question. I'm so sorry. I forgot your name, the one that's from Russia.
Oh, yeah.
I'm adopted from Kazakhstan. So how do you feel when people ask, like, because it's that confusion of like, oh, are you half white? Are you half Asian? Do you know what I mean? Do you get asked that a lot?
A lot of people don't really like, unless people know like ethnicity, they don't know that I'm from Russia. Like they would just look at me and be like, oh, she's white. So like they don't really.
So you never get like the question about like.
Sometimes people are like, oh, like where are you from? And I'll be like Long Island. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
like what's your originality? And I'd be like, oh, like Russian.
Oh, okay.
Hey, do you want to join us up here?
Sure, I don't care.
What's that?
I don't mind.
You don't mind?
No.
Yeah, why don't you join us up here, because that's kind of cool. I have a couple questions for you then. Also, I want to all right. Can you also, here, hold your breath. Pull your, also get a, what's your name again?
Jesse.
Jesse? All right. Can you zoom in on Jesse? Hang on, when they zoom. Okay, pull your mask down, I want to see. So see her, so Kazakhstan is very similar. Yeah, thanks. Like so when people immediately, here, wait, I'm going to hold this mic, you can share that one. So people assume you're Asian somehow, or what do they assume for you?
honestly, depends on what my hair color is. Like when I'm blonde, people think I'm white, but then if my hair is dark, people think I'm Asian.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
And what do they see? What do you think they see? How about you? When you look in a mirror, what do you see?
I see Kazakh.
You see Kazakh?
Yeah.
Yeah, same here, for sure. And how do you identify?
I tell people I was raised in a white household, so I don't know the traditions,
Uh-huh.
but
The Kazakh
but like
traditions.
blood, like 100% Kazakh.
Uh-huh. So if I say like, what's your ancestry? If I just say like in class, hey, what's your ancestry?
Kazakh.
You'd say Kazakh.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
6 months.
6 months?
Mhm.
So have you done any tracking of
Yeah, I did a DNA test.
you did DNA test?
Yeah, and I'm like 96% Kazakh.
Have you tracked all your birth parents at all? Do you-
It's a closed thing. I
Yeah,
don't know.
okay, yeah, I would imagine that. How about customs for you here?
I was a dual citizen up to 18. But like as soon as I turned like 18, it really just went away.
Because it was something you had to keep up?
Yeah. Like I would have to fight for it if I wanted it.
Uh-huh, and you'd have to go there,
Yeah.
probably. Have you ever been there?
No, I was going to, but then COVID.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mira, you haven't been back to Ethiopia, right?
I
You
did.
Yeah, you went back?
Yeah.
When?
2019.
Oh, yeah? How was that?
It was really good. Yeah. I saw my family for the first time since like 10 years.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
And you were in Addis?
Yes. Yeah.
Haley, do you imagine, can you see yourself ever going to China? Do you have any interest at all?
I don't have any more interest than I would like anywhere else, honestly.
You don't have any more interest to go there than anywhere
Yeah,
else?
like I think it'd be cool, but I'm
Yeah.
not like dying to go because I'm Chinese. I would
Yeah,
just
yeah,
go
yeah.
for fun.
Yeah, because you're not Chinese, right? I mean, like you say. So here, let me just throw a whole thing into this. Like you say, hey, I say I'm Kazakh, right? You say I'm Ethiopian, and you say I'm American, right?
Well,
You're not
like,
Chinese.
I don't know. It depends. Like, cause I'll tell people I'm Chinese, but I was adopted or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Cause like you can just look at me and see that I'm not. So people get confused.
So people
Really?
get confused, and they're like, what? Like, and so it's easier than just sorting out the confusion. Yeah, and there's no way to do, like, if you just, for you to say, respond, I'm Kazakh or Ethiopian or Chinese or not or American, whatever you want to do, however you feels comfortable. That's what's so awesome about this. And for you, Olia, to say I'm Russian or whatever, it just doesn't matter. It's like the just being alive is difficult enough than to figure out identities in some way. Who has a question? Here, can you pass that down?
This one's actually for Haley. Are there any people who come up to you who are also Chinese who might just start talking Mandarin to you? And if they do, like, does that ever make you feel some kind of way?
Yeah, that happened to me at an airport once. This guy like just started speaking, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying. I was like, my parents are white. I don't know. So I didn't handle it that well, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it never like makes you like feel bad that like you never got to learn the language or anything like that?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that?
No, I said, does it ever make you feel bad that you never got to learn the language or anything like that?
Do you feel bad that you never got to learn the language?
Oh no, I don't care that much.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just like, I mean, you're in a way, you're kind of like I'm just a citizen of the world, right? It doesn't really matter, Yeah.
I have a question as well.
Yep.
So how does it, I don't know if it's common for like certain cultures where like one sibling's adopted and the other one stays with the biological parent, or like where both siblings are adopted. Like, how did that make you feel meeting your biological sister knowing that she's with your biological mom?
So this is Olia and Miret also, yeah.
It was like, I don't know, it's kind of shocking, and I had to like kind of take it in and like take it for a moment, because it's like, she's 10 years older than me, so like she remembered it more than I did when I was younger. And I'm kind of like American now, and I'm like into this life. So I think she feels some type of way more than I do. But that's because like I've been here for so long, and she was like older and stuff, and she has kids and everything. So
Does she feel in a way jealous that you have like a U.S. passport?
I don't know if she feels jealous, but like I know she like really misses me because in Russia, like you're not supposed to get adopted if you have a sibling.
Yeah.
But like the judge like overlooked that, so like I can get adopted and stuff.
Hey, didn't we watch a video on like the coldest city? Remember that, right? That's like kind of near where you're from.
Yeah.
Dude, you remember that? Remember the video we watched, right? Like how cold it was in the one city? Like that's where she's from. I'm like, holy shit, I'd be really happy that I got adopted from there. You know what I mean? But here's a question. Actually, it looked like a pretty cool place. Do any of you know how it came to be? This is a question, by the way, from the stream. Somebody watching the stream is asking this. How your parents came to adopt you from that particular country. Like, how was that? How did that come about?
For me, my mom has some friends in State College who has adopted some kids. She also like really interested in like the world.
Mhm.
So she has also like friends on Facebook who have like Ethiopian kids who are adopted, and so she was like interested in like adopting like some kids from Ethiopia that way.
Hey, can I show you a slide? Can you go to the one slide? Next one. Here. Number of international adoptees to the U.S. Look, like we don't think about Ethiopia, right? But look at, here. I mean, here we are. We're coming up here. I mean, the numbers have gone down tremendously, but it's a lot of people from Ethiopia. And look, in Russia was very high. When you came, Russia was very high. Anybody else? Do you have an idea why they chose Russia?
I know they went through an agency in Texas, and my mom like just had a dream that she like wanted, like I came in her dream or something like that, and so I think she like picked Russia and was like, oh, let's just like, go there.
Maybe she had a dream that there's this little girl in northern Russia freezing. You know what I mean? She needs a sweater. She needs a parka. Yeah, Haley, how about you?
I don't know why they chose China.
They just did.
Probably.
Well, but in fairness, I have an idea. Right, you're 21, so 2 decades ago, there were lots of adoptions and there was a period of years from China. So there were many adoption agencies. Yeah. Do you have any idea for your parents?
So I guess like back in like 2000, 2001, Kazakhstan was like a popular place to adopt from.
Yep.
And my mom chose Kazakhstan. She was gonna do Russian. I don't know why she didn't, but she like had to stay in Kazakhstan for like 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. This was right after the fall. Yeah. Yeah, bro. Push.
This is more a question that anyone can answer. I guess it's more for Miller. How do you say your name again? I'm sorry. Miller. Yeah. So
Miller.
you lived in Ethiopia for about 10 years, and now you've lived in the U.S. for give or take 10 years. I don't know exactly how old you are. What is one difference you noticed living in Ethiopia and then living in the U.S.?
For me, it's like the freedom here. Also, like here you have like more education, and, like more like just like everything you have here. Because back in Ethiopia, for like the last like 2 years, I was in an orphanage. Cause my mom was really, really poor, and like my family couldn't really raise me. But like up here I have like education and like just like more sources.
Yeah. Hey, who has a yeah.
I think we talk right in it. So this might be like kind of an interesting question for you guys, but this goes for anybody. How did it feel like growing up in a household where like your parents didn't maybe like look exactly like you? Like I look pretty similar to my dad, but like I couldn't imagine like growing up and like when I was like really little, like looking up to my parents and like not seeing myself. How does like that affect you like growing up?
That's a really good question. Can you pass it back there?
I guess for like the majority, I for a while like I didn't really understand, but my biggest difference was like my family's all above like 6 foot, and I'm 5'1", so like that's kind of like the difference. Like I walk around and people are like, oh, like you're clearly not related, and it's like, oh yeah, huh, good one. But like that's like my biggest difference. So it's like it just like feels like 3 and 1 kind of in a way.
So there's 3 people and then 1 person.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. And so I feel like, yeah, okay.
Again, I haven't really thought about it that much. Sorry, that's my answer for everything.
Dude, no, hang on. This is so awesome. You know what I mean? No, really. So here, class, you understand something here. We live in this world where we assume that everybody who is not, in the United States, we assume that everybody who is not white thinks about not being white all the time, thinks about their ethnicity, their race, their culture, their background. They look in a mirror, they see themselves, every day I look in a mirror and I see that I'm black. You know, like, no, there are people in this room who are black who don't think about being black, right? And Haley is saying, like, no, I don't even think about it. Like, you don't have to think about it. It's not really that important. It's not that big of a deal. And like, I didn't understand this till, just going to hijack the conversation for a second, right? When I lived in Ecuador, I lived up in the mountains, and I was like the only white guy in where I was living. I was the only American, only white guy I'd ever see. Weeks and weeks would go by. And eventually I just didn't even think about it. Like it just didn't matter. Like it just wasn't part of my reality that I thought about. So, okay. So, did we answer your question? Okay, yes. Yeah.
Hi, Haley. So I kind of am in the same boat as you. I was also adopted from China, but I was wondering, like, do you still like have like your Chinese name or anything like that?
I do, but I don't remember it. My middle name is still Chinese though, but I think my parents have been pronouncing it wrong for like 21 years, until my friend asked me, and I was like, oh, it's Kin, like Q-I-N. And she was like, oh, for the past, like, however long I've known you, I thought it was Chin. And I was like, shit.
What is it? Q-I-N?
It's Q-I-N.
Wait, hang on a second.
How is that pronounced?
Yeah, how is that pronounced?
I don't know.
Wait, do you know?
No, like mine's Lisha.
Q-I-N.
It could be Qing or Qing. I don't know.
Qing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're wrong. Okay.
So everyone's wrong. Dude, the whole world is wrong. Well, you got 1.4 million Chinese that are not wrong. But wait, so you're also adopted from China.
Yeah.
What's your name again?
Molly.
Molly. Hey, do you want to? We don't have much time, but do you want to
Sure.
just stand up here? Yeah, come up here because like it's awesome. Yeah. You have a question? Yep.
So I've kind of
You're good. Okay, go ahead.
So it kind of sounds like you guys, like as a whole, have been saying that like you miss that like more of that connection that like your parents didn't keep up with like your culture as much, like where you were born and stuff.
Except
Would you-
Haley.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say for like as speaking as a whole, like that's kind of what I've been hearing more. Are you guys happy, or do you have like any kind of resentment towards your family for like not keeping up with that, or like how would you describe it overall? I mean, Haley's kind of said like, yeah.
Wait, let's let you. What's your name again?
I'm Molly.
Molly. Let's let Molly answer that. Wait, yo. Shh. We're gonna let Molly answer that.
So I was also like actually me and my 3 sisters were adopted from China.
Biological sisters?
No.
Okay.
But like we were kind of in the same boat. But like we've actually talked about this. But I don't really resent my parents for anything. I'm like more in like the same boat as Haley. My little sister might like answer differently, but like my parents really tried when we were younger. We went to like Mandarin classes and stuff like that. But like just as like the years went on, I don't know, like I just wasn't as interested in learning about it as like maybe my older or younger sister. But like I don't resent them or anything like that.
Yeah. So you're in the middle. Yeah, because when you're a kid, you don't really care. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anybody else want to respond to that?
Personally, I really want to learn a lot about my culture, but I can't.
Yo, wait, hand. Yo. Shh. Yo, we have 2 minutes. Yo.
Because Kazakhstan's low key, like, there's a lot going on there right now. And the government sort of, it's not communist, but it's like, you'll get like barely any information about it. Like, if you really want to deep dive into it, you can't. And like, I personally have never met anyone else from Kazakhstan, so I can't learn about it really.
Listen, okay, we're going to say this. We have 30 seconds. You have like the 2-word answer. What's the coolest thing about being adopted from another country? You know, really, go fat. What's the coolest thing?
I don't know. Russia's pretty cool.
All right, that's cool.
Oh, I don't know. People assume I'm good at math, so.
Yeah, you brought that with you biologically. All right, Mira,
I have nothing.
you have nothing?
I would say like the new family and opportunities.
Cool.
Borat.
Borat. All right. Thanks, man. Borat. Only it's not Borat. It's his. Wait. Yeah. Yeah.